Hello everybody and welcome to the next episode of my game engine development series. This week I'm going to be tackling lighting, shadows, specular lighting, normal mapping and getting the camera angle set up properly for the top-down view that I'm imagining. Now let's get straight into it. At the end of the last episode I was discussing the weird cutoff that I had at the top and on the right. Now you may notice the top distance is smaller. I've actually fixed it. So what the issue was, in my display manager class I somehow managed to have the width and the height of the screen the wrong values. So the values should in fact be those right there, and if we go and run that here you can see that there's now no issues. I have no idea how it managed to get wrong in the first place, but they are now fixed, and I do understand that having the width and the height of the game is hard-coded is probably not a good idea. That is something that I'm going to be working on in the future to make that dynamic so it can detect the resolution of the output screen as the game loads up. So the next thing I'm going to be working on is starting the lighting. Okay, so it's the same day now and I've been working on the initial steps of the lighting system. As you can see here, I've got it partly working. The nice green tiles that we had rendering before are now stained red. Nothing morbid going on here, I promise. It's just the color of the light I chose. So now what we can do is declare light sources for the game. This is the position and the color. So what we could do is set that to 0 and RGB, set the B value to 1. And now there should be a blue hue, very faint there, probably not the best color to choose with the black background. So the next thing I'm going to be working on, these tiles here, they just have a normal value of 1, so that they're all facing the same direction. What I'm now going to be working on is implementing normal maps, so the lighting should look a little bit more realistic. So it is Wednesday now, and I've decided to take a bit of a break from the lighting and to work on some of the camera stuff. I've decided to move the angle of the camera. This is a bit more representative of the direction how the player is going to be looking down into the world. So I just need to do a bit more work on that mouse control to enable swiveling the camera, but it's a work in progress. So it is Wednesday evening now, and I've been working on specular highlighting and multiple light sources as well. So as you can see here, there's a red light source affecting the cube. There's also a white light source down here on the edge of the plane affecting the fruit stand model as well as the ground plane. Now if I disable the second light source, you will be able to see the specular highlighting a bit more here. On the fruit stand it's got a nice shine value to it, and on the ground plane down here as well. Now if I re-enable that second light source and rerun, the next thing I'm going to be working on is attenuation and fall-off values for each light source. Obviously in real life, light doesn't affect an object at an infinite distance. There is a fall-off value, so that's what I'm hoping to implement next. I'm just wrapping up now for Wednesday evening, and the attenuation factors are now in place. You can see here, this is the standard setting for the light attenuation. If I then change the value here from 1 to 2, we can see that the light has in fact dropped off a bit. There's still a bit of a shine on this model, but for the most part it's dropped off, with it being slightly brighter down here nearer to its source. Now it doesn't look the best on the ground plane at the moment, but that's because there's not really any normal mapping in place. This ground plane is actually a series of tiles, not one single texture or mesh, so there are lots of normal vertices, but they're all pointing up at the moment. So the next job on the list is actually implementing normal mapping. This should hopefully fix that issue and make the light fall off look a bit nicer. It is now Monday of the following week, and I've been implementing specular maps. If I run it here and I show you what I've got, as you can see here, the top of the store model kind of has a bit of color to it, and there's a bit of a green hue down here, which is what you'd expect considering there's a grass texture. But the rest of the diffuse color seems to have blended with the specular map, and now it's just all grey. So I think I'm halfway there, but I think there's something that's not quite right. Taking a break from the progress updates for a second, I just want to put in a quick shameless plug to say I do now have a Twitter account. So if you do want to check out what I've been posting and want to follow and support the channel, please do follow me here. It's at DegreeDev. that would be much appreciated. Thank you. So I'm just finishing up on Monday night, and I realised where I was going wrong with the specular map being displayed as a diffuse colour. Effectively, what I was doing in my model shader, I set my texture bank number 1 as the model texture, the diffuse texture, rather than the specular map. So that's why it was rendering out as that. But now you can see it's working. There's a nice highlight here on the model. Just for comparison, the window I'm dragging in now, this is what it looked like beforehand, and this is what it looks like after. So the specular map is definitely coming into play here. I can't decide next what I want to work on. Next on the list is implementing normal maps. There's also implementing displacement maps, because this ground here is looking a bit ugly just with one flat plane. It would be nice to actually have a bit of displacement from a texture to make it seem like it actually is grass, or it actually is gravel or sand, something like that. There's also an ambient occlusion map that I want to implement as well. So I can't decide what I want to do next, but I think it might be the displacement maps. It is Wednesday afternoon now, and I've finished implementing the displacement maps, and I've also improved the batch rendering system because I found when these ground tiles had displacement maps applied to them, there was quite a lot of strain being put on the renderer, because for every single tile, the same process, the same computations were being executed, and for even a small ground plane like this, which is 50 by 50 tiles, it was slowing the frame rate right down to about 13-14 FPS. So that is now fixed. As you can see, we're running at a steady 60 FPS. So here is the scene without any displacement maps being applied to the ground texture, and if I quickly transition to this scene here, we can see that here are the tiles with the displacement maps. Now it is quite subtle at the moment. I haven't ramped up the amplitude that much, but it does add a nice bit of depth. We can see that the shadows are slightly more realistic now. There is actually a nice nuanced bit of texture on the ground plane as well. It doesn't look flat, so I think that's a really nice start. And I am going to actually end development here for this week. I've just finished a moving apartments, and I haven't had much time recently, and I don't see much time in the foreseeable future to do any more work on the engine, and I don't want to wait a really long time to release another video. So next on the agenda is implementing normal maps as well as implementing ambient occlusion maps. Once those two are implemented, I think I'll be doing a bit of engine optimization, because it is running pretty smoothly at the moment, but I have a feeling it probably could be running a bit better. Once those are out the way, I'm going to be working on, I think, getting a player model in, and I guess we'll take it from there. But thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.